Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our live show for today. So we have a quick show today. Today is going to be covering essentially the some of the updates for the business owners who have employees trying to figure out what's the right balance between working from home or being remote. And then we're going to look at Mickey Bowman's speech today. Part of her speech. She is one of the governors on the Federal Reserve. So let's jump right into our article for the day. All right, so this here is a another Forbes article that we have for you, and this is titled "Why Your Workforce Doesn't Want to Go Back to Work." So we're going to read this first part for you here. Snapchat CEO Evan Spiegel recently called employees back to the office. A leaked memo unveiled Snap's default together policy. In it, Spiegel urged employees to sacrifice individual convenience for the sake of collective success. Quick note, every business is different, right? So remote is going to work better in some situations, and in others, being in person or say providing a analog experience is going to be best. Elon Musk, we're going to highlight this next point. Elon Musk is famously known for his views on remote work, asserting that away from campus employees just, quote, phone it in, end quote, and don't put in the hard work necessary to help companies achieve their potential. Recently, he somewhat changed his views on the remote setting. Part of that being that you can cut costs from not having an office lease. But to kind of add to that point, do people work as hard when they're at home? Well, I guess it's something that we'll take a look at. So we're going to skip ahead to the data right here. Let's highlight this first part right here. In economist Nicholas Bloom's work with his team at Stanford, he's found that about a quarter of workers don't have any desire to continue remote work at all. They opt for the office full stop. These workers trend towards young and single or empty nesters, implying that the office is a primary social outlet. So what you have is a quarter of the workforce that is over the work from home. Um, and they're saying that the social aspect is a big part of it. And this is based on, again, this is the economist Nicholas Bloom, his work, and he's over at Stanford University. And so moving right along is that there's the opposite side of that coin, right? So let's highlight this. Then there is the other extreme. One third of workers want to be totally remote due to factors like kids, long commutes, and then there's a long thin line where everyone else falls. So if you're an employer, say in the Los Angeles metro area, remote work probably is going to make a little bit more sense simply because, if you've driven on the highways recently, the traffic is out of control. The traffic is even, I would say, it's worse now post pandemic than it was pre pandemic. So having people, I guess, come in for arbitrary reasons will seem just arbitrary to your workers. With that being said, it's important to know that there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And different strokes for different folks. That every situation doesn't call for work from home, right? Everybody is not going to be working from home in the future. There has to be somewhat of an analog experience. That's just my opinion. I think business is done better in person with a handshake. I think the virtual simply complements your strengths to the better. But as I said, each industry is different. This stream is designed for those that actually own a business, run a business, not though the employees of the business, right? So that's our first section for today. Just going over that Forbes article. Something else that's new in the news is Governor, well, she's a Fed chair, Mickey Bowman spoke today. This was at 8 a.m. So I want to share the first 4 minutes of her interview. So let's go ahead and share this with you guys.
With this group of women and men who represent community banks from all across the country. So thank you very much.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the ongoing invitation.
Absolutely. And are you, before we get into a couple of questions about the economy and then a host of regulatory matters, of course, you're from Kansas. Did you watch the game last
Go
night?
Chiefs, of course I
All
did.
right.
And as usual, you have to watch it to the very end because that's when Patrick Mahomes kind of pulls out the magic, right?
Decided with 8 seconds left. So
Go
Chiefs
Chiefs
Nation. And for the Philadelphia fans, that's a tough one. All right. Well, my season. I'm sorry, Duncan. You covered the economy pretty extensively, so one or two of these I think you've already addressed, but there were a couple of questions I did want to ask you about. This whole soft landing phrase that everyone talks about. Some people think it's just impossible for the Fed to achieve a soft landing, given what's been happening in the economy. Do you think you and your colleagues at the Fed can prove those folks wrong?
Well, I think the concept of a soft landing is a really unusual thing to be able to accomplish. But I think that as we're approaching the economic conditions.
So just to clarify what they mean by a soft landing. So right now the Fed is tightening the money supply, meaning they're raising interest rates, meaning the cost of money is more, right? A soft landing, what that means is how do they tighten the money supply without causing a full-blown recession?
And our evaluation of the economy and how it's performing at this point, we continue to see a very strong labor market. We are seeing some moderation in inflation, not as much as we would like, but these factors are leading us to believe that as we're seeing economic activity, which was stronger than we expected in the fourth quarter of last year, as we continue to see that moving forward, I think it's possible that we will continue to see these unusual dynamics continue, and I don't want to make a prediction, but I think as we continue to watch the data come in, it's possible that we may see these conditions persisting.
Okay. Now, again, the room is full of women and men who lead community banks from across the country. If you're a community bank CEO here today, you're trying to plan for the future, where should they expect the Fed funds rate to end up?
Let me look into my crystal ball. Well, I'll tell you what, Rob, I can only give you my perspective on this, and
So the Fed funds rate is a rate that the only interest rate that the Federal Reserve actually sets, and that's kind of a guiding policy for other banks to follow. Some will be lower, some will be higher, but that is the only rate that the Federal Reserve actually controls.
We published an SEP, or Statement of Economic Projections, after the December meeting. Another one will be published after the March meeting. We'll have a lot of data points that come in between now and then, but I think, as I said in my remarks, I'll expect that we will continue to increase the federal funds rate because we have to bring inflation back down to a sustainable, to our 2% goal, and in order to do that, we'll need to bring demand and supply into better balance to to achieve that.
Thank you. I mentioned during my comments a moment ago the debt ceiling debate in Congress, and I know that's not the direct purview of the Fed. That said, you play an incredibly important role in the economy. How are you factoring that into your assessment of the economy moving forward? Do you have concerns about a protracted standoff?
Well, I think these are matters that the Congress and the administration need to resolve. It's important that, that the U.S. government does not default on its debts. So my expectation would be at some point there would be an agreement on that. But that, of course, we'll leave that to the Congress and administration to work out.
Thank you. Fed now, payments. Obviously, innovation is so important. Innovation in payments is so important. Everyone's grappling with payments.
All right, so we'll pretty much stop it right there with the video. So to give you an idea of what they were just talking about with the debt ceiling. So right now, the U.S. government, we have a little over 31 trillion in debt, right? And so that is a astronomical number. So essentially, converting $1 trillion, let's think of it in a timeline, right? So 1 trillion seconds, right? Is 31,000 years. There's 31,710 years to be exact, right? And we have over 31 trillion in unfunded obligations. So the whole thing is the government shouldn't default on its loans. That would be a disaster for those of us that live here in America. So, recap of the show, because we're down to the last few seconds. We went over the work from home versus the analog experience for the employees. If you're a business owner, which one works a little bit better? And then we took a brief view at Mickey Bowman's speech today. So that ties up our show for today. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, if you are interested in the products or services that I offer, just email me and I will be there to give you any help or any guidance. Take care. Have a good one.